Are you looking for inspiration, peace, and a deeper connection with your soul? If you're ready to investigate your higher truth, take a deeper look inside, and discover a better way to live, stay tuned for Higher Soul Living, where we ignite your divine intelligence for life. With me, Reverend Christine Hart-Savage. I experienced a profound spiritual awakening that was so life-changing. It took me into a 30-year career as a metaphysical life coach and breathwork expert. I've mentored thousands of people through their personal challenges, anxiety, self-doubt, and search for meaning. Higher Soul Living is about choosing to live the higher way. It's about taking conscious ownership and drawing spiritual intelligence into your everyday life. Join me on a search for higher truth to find hope, connection, and happiness. The Higher Soul Living Show starts now. Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may be. This is Reverend Christine Hart-Savage, and today we are going to look at success. Success. It's an interesting one, isn't it? What the heck is success? It's one of those things that we've often been looking for in our lives. So is it really what we've been led to believe? Because I don't think it is. So success is something that we all want. But how do we know when we've got it? How do you know when you've made it? It's like, what is it? It's sort of elusive. Actually, I hope I have some success this afternoon. I'm having a bad hair day. In fact, I'm having a bad week with my hair. I've got a hair appointment this afternoon, so I'm hoping that it will be successful and I'll come home with more manageable hair. But success. What do you personally measure your success by? It's an interesting question. So I'd like to open this up and give this a good shake up. What is success? They're these questions that we don't often ask ourselves. We don't grow up thinking, oh, what is success? What do I do today to make today successful? So this is another question I've got for you. If you achieved everything, absolutely everything that you set out to achieve in your life, would you be happy? Because you know what? There's some people I see clinically and they come in, and I will give you a couple of examples as we go through. They come in and they've achieved everything and they're still not happy. They're still not feeling it. There's a feeling of emptiness inside. So I'd like to really, really discuss that part too. Is success something that you know anything about? Anything at all? What was success to your family? Because the way we've been conditioned with success is interesting, and it's all a little bit different. So can we bridge the gap of traditional success? Because I think there is a big gap there. And if so, how do we bridge that gap? Is there something vital missing in the way that we think about success? I know when I look back on my life, I see success very, very differently now than when I was younger. In fact, I don't even remember really thinking much about success or being successful or not being successful. But I do remember just trying to find my way through life. And I think we all do that. So doing what I thought was the right thing and doing it in the right way. But is that always successful? What's the right way? So we can have a very different mindset when we're younger, a different understanding than we do now as we grow through the experiences of life. I had a client earlier in the week, and I'm going to call her Hayley. So one of my clinical clients. So Hayley and I were sitting in my clinic and we had this really interesting discussion on, you guessed it, success. It sort of just came up in conversation. So a little bit bit on Hayley's backstory. So Hayley has come from a family who are very high achievers, high expectations in the area of traditional success. And Hayley has achieved a really high level of success. She's a young 36-year-old corporate lawyer. And she is obviously highly intelligent. And you would look at her, like the world would look at Hayley and see a successful young woman, a corporate lawyer. So she has achieved success. But to Hayley, she is not successful. She looks around at her life and she sees this so-called success. But inside, she doesn't feel successful. And she looks at some of her successful friends and knows she doesn't want that life. And yet they've all got it, her friends. Or have they? So in Hayley's eyes, it's have they? So why is Hayley questioning this? Why is she questioning her success, her friend's success? What is success? So she absolutely despises what she does. She forces herself every day to get up and go to work. She literally drags herself to work. And it absolutely exhausts her to the point where she was really not coping. And she was getting sick when I first met her. So she took some time out. Now, when we think about Hayley's life, it is incredibly successful. But for her, it isn't. And it's the same for so many people, so many of us. So she also has this other side where she's really creative. She's interested in visual arts. She's dabbled a little in drawing and illustration. But her passion, her absolute passion is writing. She wants to write and not write corporate-y stuff because she already does that. She wants to write what she wants to write. And she has never given herself permission to write. She's never given herself permission to write. Because in her family's eyes and her own eyes, and maybe the eyes of society, it's not a real job or it's not a high enough achievement. Now, it's interesting because Hayley's creative side gives her energy. Her corporate side absolutely depletes her. Like it really, she's losing energy. She becomes exhausted. But this creative side, it brings energy to her. It brings a feeling of aliveness to her that she doesn't get from her other work. So I asked Hayley, what's success? And I'm paraphrasing here, but she basically told me career, like her job, financial success, and societal success, like how people look at you in the real world, so to speak. Friends, family, the world, based on what you do, what you own, and how much money you have. So they were her conditioned success markers from her upbringing, from her childhood. Then I asked her, what about spiritual success, social success? And Hayley was a bit taken aback. She was quiet for a moment. And then she said, wow, I've never thought about that as success. So she was surprised when I mentioned spiritual success. And I was surprised that she was surprised. I love it when things happen like that because I actually saw something shift in Hayley in that moment. It's like something just opened up inside her. It's like the mind opens up to new ideas and concepts that have always been there. But for some reason, in that moment, at that time, we go bang. And it's, oh, something new. Now, Hayley is very interested in the metaphysical or spiritual aspects of herself and of life, as I am, very much so. but she hadn't looked at these aspects in the way of a success measure. So I pose this question to you. What is success? Is it really what we've been led to believe? And if not, what is the key to success? What might be the key to success? And how can we bridge that gap that happens in our success measure? So our conditioning and our societal success measure is very external. So how do we bridge that gap? And in your eyes, if you think about some of the people in your life and their success, what is that measured on? How do you see them from the outside? And if you know them well, how are they viewing themselves from the inside? Now, in Hayley's case, she's very successful in the eyes of society. She's achieved well and she's put a lot of effort into her achievements. So we opened up the discussion in clinic to include more of a grounded and a more rounded version of success. And I've thought about it quite a bit since our session, since Hayley's session, about how we actually do measure success. So there's so many different ways that we can look at success. There's even like things like very small things like random success. What's random success? Like when you meet someone, you might be traveling on the train somewhere, you meet somebody, or you're walking down the street and you have a connection with someone, or you might be in a cafe and have a chat to somebody. You could be at the airport, you could be anywhere and have a really meaningful, deep and uplifting exchange just for those moments. Is that a part of a successful life? Is it all of these little things that happen, the day-to-day experiences that create a holistic and successful life, as well as the bigger things, all the different levels of achievement, because there's so many levels of achievement. There's the academic success, career success, financial success. We've got our spiritual success, social success, friendship success, relationship success. We could have family success. So I ask you now, what did your family measure success on? You might need to think about that. Sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. We have to ponder it and sort of work it through. And did your achievements measure up to your family's expectations? And do they measure up in, really, now I'm thinking about this, do your expectations, your success measure up to your expectations, your personal expectations? So let's take a quick look at what spiritual success is. What might spiritual success look like? And why is it important? I think spiritual success really looks like an internal connection to a deeper part of yourself. And when we have that, it brings in like a sense of belonging. And I think that sense of belonging is vital for feeling good about yourself. Spiritual success would bring in a feeling of emotional balance, a sense of calm in your emotions, an experience of peace. And there would be a mental calmness and balance as well. And a feeling of deep happiness. And not for any reason, just this feeling of, oh, I feel happy. Just happy because I'm happy. That's it. Spiritual success. I believe that's what you get from it. You get a balance. You feel happy. You feel a sense of gratitude for life. None of us are always in this, by the way, but it is something that if you practice certain, practices like meditation, breathing, any sort of what you might call personal development or spiritual type practices bring you to that type of spiritual success bit by bit. And if we lose it, all we have to do is practice that again. So is that success? Can we base our success on that measure? Now, here's an example. So what about the person who has everything? And I've worked with a lot of people in this situation over my 30 odd years clinically. So they have things like, the family's great, all good, a top job, big house, luxury car. Their life says to the world around them, I've made it. Doing so well by societal measures of success. But this is what is often the case. They can't sleep at night. They have so much stress. They're anxious. They feel like they're falling apart with the pressure of it all, the pressure of this success. Now, bigger and more isn't always better. Is this success? With all of that stress and everything else that comes with it, is it success? Society would say, yes, it is. But I tell you, burnout and breakdown, anxiety, high levels of stress that always turn into burnout and eventually breakdown. And I know that because that's what happened to me. And I have seen so many people over the years. Is this success? I don't think so. Here's another scenario. There are those people that are mortgaged to the hilt. They have loans. The bank owns their house, their car. They've got loans for their kids' schooling to go to, a good private school. They're suffering from financial stress and pressure, but it looks on the outside that they've made it, that they're successful, but they're in a terrible inner state. Now, this leads to anxiety, stress, and breakdown again, eventually. People come in and see me with this exact thing. So is this success? So is this where you might find yourself today? The other thing here too, when we've got that sort of pressure and we're in a family situation, relationship, marriage, whatever it might be, this can cause immense relationship problems. It can also cause huge health problems. As we know, stress is really a killer. It's a terrible thing. So what is success? I was told by a client recently about a couple who inherited a very large sum of money. And what they did was they travelled first class everywhere. They did lots and lots of holidays. They built a beautiful, huge new house. They lived a grand life. Nothing wrong with that, right? Got the money? Go for it. Fantastic. But they didn't plan well and the money ran out to the point where they'd obviously lost control of what they were doing and weren't really monitoring their money situation because they to the point where they lost their house and they had to rent and then they couldn't afford the rent either. And their son apparently had been quite successful in his business. So he built them a small house and they live there now. So success also takes a type of responsibility. The choices we make around success are important, but what we measure success on, I think, is even more important. So I want to tell you another brief story about a client from many years ago, but I think this is a really great story around, pardon me, around measuring success because I'll go through this because it is interesting. And I'm going to call him Alan. So when Alan came to see me, he was feeling quite down. He was quite lost. He was feeling hollow inside, unfulfilled and flat. And he told me, I don't understand it. I have everything. I have everything. He'd achieved what he wanted in life. He was extremely successful. He and his family could travel first class anywhere in the world. They could go anywhere. They could do anything they wanted. He had a lovely, loving family, a successful international business, but he wasn't content. He was very successful, but he wasn't content. He wasn't happy. And he came to me because he said, I've really got it all and I don't understand it. I'm flat. I want to know why. Why could this be when I'm so successful? He didn't understand. He said to me, what's missing? And he'd heard about me and he said, I've heard you can help me, but I just don't understand how or what's going on. Why do I feel like this? So I knew what was missing straight away because it was what is missing for so many of us. In fact, I think all of us at some stage in our life is that deeper sense of self. He hadn't found yet himself. He hadn't developed this really deep inner beautiful part of himself. So I suggested that we do some personal development and some spiritual development. Give him some tools so that he can also come into clinic and we do the deeper work. And when he goes home, he's got daily practices that he can do. So we set out on this big PD journey, personal development journey, spiritual journey. We worked with how the mind works and understanding all about thoughts and creation and the energy, universal energy, and how it works with the mind, and how to consciously use breath for different life results, to deal with feeling flat, with anxiety, with stress, but also using breath to go into an open state spiritually and also for creation. The breath is just amazing because it's part of life. It's part of the universe. We're breathing in this energy. We're breathing in this intelligence, and we can really learn to harness that intelligence and direct it. So the breath is really important on many, many levels. We also looked at how to balance emotional reactions, because that's a huge one for humans. We need to balance our emotional reactions. One of the higher teachings with the I am teachings and metaphysical teachings is that we all have the power to choose our thoughts, to work with our mind, and to control our thoughts, control our emotional reactions, and go back into a harmonious balance. So we did a lot of work with that. I taught him how to meditate, how to open up that higher soul way of living and taking that into that practical daily life of living, really starting to use that. So Alan started having some experiences, really experiencing and connecting with deeper parts of himself. And he started to feel connected to something that he described was higher. And it was a very beautiful, and it is a very beautiful part of ourselves. So he was connecting with that higher and beautiful part of himself within. And he started to feel a depth of inner peace. And he was expanding his awareness greatly. And he was starting to see things differently. He was raising his consciousness. And it's what I call that soul connection. So there was more soul that was embodying as he did his daily practices, and he came to clinic weekly. And we did a lot of the coaching and we did a lot of talking, and he was experiencing things and we would discuss it so that he understood it on certain levels and he could keep expanding that. So he was working really well and he was bridging the gap. This is how we bridge the gap. He found the missing key. That is the missing key to success. He was filling the emptiness he'd been been experiencing so keenly in his life with something larger than himself. He was experiencing a spaciousness, an aliveness, a higher intelligence, a divine presence, whatever you'd like to call it. He was excited about life again. He was starting to live a higher soul-connected life, really grounded in his everyday life. And his path opened up to a new and wonderful adventure. The more he raised himself, he found a new purpose in addition to what he was already doing and what he already had. And actually, Alan's been of really great service to humanity. He's done some fantastic things for humanity. He set up things with his family, and he's been of great service to humanity since he's opened this up. So to me, this is success. I think we need to look at success in a more holistic way, a more enriching and balanced way, a blending of the inner and the outer aspects of ourselves. So that's spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically in the outer world. Oh, my producer's winding me up. I'm always running over. So we can still achieve all of these things, but we have to balance the outer world with the inner world. So you can start learning to blend the internal and external worlds. So you can visit my website too at soulLifeConnection.com. And I've got a course called How to Give a Shift. It's a six-week coaching program. So that's open now for expressions of interest. So if you're interested in all of this, go and do that. But the following things are a good measure of inner success. Calmness of mind. When you've got that, you're working well. Emotional stability and balance, physical well-being, a sense of internal connection and peace, a sense of belonging, being able to flow with life, not butting heads with it, but going with the flow. And the world needs this. We need to change the way that we're looking at success. So give yourself permission to follow what's in your heart. Like Hayley, go for it. So really start to listen to your soul, follow your heart, develop a balanced mind and a stable emotional state. And this will lead you to good choices and ultimately a happier life. Happiness is a wonderful measure of success. Happiness is a wonderful measure of success. Many blessings to you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for tuning in to Higher Soul Living, where you'll ignite your divine intelligence for life with me, Reverend Christine Hart-Savage. Join me every second and fourth Thursday at 3 p.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio for more information and stories that inspire hope, possibilities, and a greater understanding of who you are at a higher soul level. Together we deepen the connection between the spiritual and the physical aspects of your being and align to your soul's innate intelligence. Metaphysics and the higher soul's journey are my greatest joy. I invite you to join our Facebook community, Soul Life Connection Group, and to visit my website, soulLifeConnection.com, for more information about me, my programs, my coaching, and to tap into your higher soul's intelligence. I hope to see you next time.